Hi, today I'm going to interview an expert on project management, Professor Alan Pilkington from Westminster University. Welcome.
Hello, Tor. It's nice to be here and interesting to find out and explore more about the important ideas to do with project management.
Before we talk about project management, what got you into production operations management in the first place?
I had an interesting education in that I enjoyed doing the more technical things and playing around with things when I was a child, and I studied engineering at university, and there I found that production and operations management was perhaps the most interesting thing, as you're dealing with systems and processes that construct and build things that are useful.
But project management is not exactly the same as production and operations management, or how do you see it?
Yeah, I think project management is an offshoot of production management. It's a special case in many ways. In my early career, I worked for Land Rover, and almost everything I did there wasn't about manufacturing products. It was working on projects to try and think about how to evolve the production systems or developing new products. So even many years ago in the car industry, every second aspect of the work that you were doing was about managing a project rather than running a production process. The production process, once it's designed, effectively runs itself. Project management is more about trying to invent and create new things and looking for those special cases.
So what exactly are the key differences, do you think, from running production in the factory and running projects as you did?
I think the important thing is that in most cases, operations management, what we're trying to do is standardize things, make processes so that they're consistent and reliable. The problem with project management, and the reason why I see it as an extreme form of production management, is the fact that you're dealing with instances of change. You're trying to manage those changes. And I think the key thing about trying to understand and be an effective project manager is understanding that while the project you're working on may be leading towards some unique outcome, actually the way you carry out each project can be made a standardized process. So much like a production operations line is about repeating tasks over and over again in a consistent way, project management is about developing ways that you can repeat the project steps in a consistent, repeatable way.
Aha, so although suppliers, maybe customers, are changing from project to project, you're still able to provide these repeatable processes.
Exactly. The task that you do may be with different people, it may be with a different company, it may be with a different product. But in effect, what you're doing is you're carrying out the same operation, the same process, just each time the context or the setting or the product that you're working on is different. So I think in many ways there are many similarities. But in some cases, I think project management is often more interesting than production management because you're dealing with these exceptions all the time.
I guess experts disagree on the last one there, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Alan, can I ask you, do you have then some specific tools and methods that you use to run projects more effectively and efficiently?
Yeah. I mean, in many ways, when we approach project management, we talk about different tools to do with scheduling and managing projects. All of these are things that we know very well, and we've been doing it for many years. So there isn't a lot that we can really learn and develop from that. Where project management gets interesting are where the current advances are and the ways that organizations can add value is when they think about the fact that the projects they work on, often they have several projects running at the same time. And it's how do you manage the resources across those different projects effectively. So perhaps if we think of a construction project, perhaps we have a team of people who are good at roofing, for example. And if we're building 3 or 4 houses, we need to ensure that the roofers are spread out so that they can work consistently without being demanded on all 3 projects at exactly the same time. So one of the important things at the moment is how do we manage the resources across multiple projects? This gets much more complicated if we think about projects that involve multiple organizations. So one of the key areas at the moment in terms of research, developing project management tools and techniques, and making organizations more effective at their projects, is thinking about how do we manage those external organizations. So some of the important tools and methods that we have are managing those resources effectively. A good example is recently in London, they are building a new underground railway line called Crossrail.
Mm-hmm.
Setting up the project, doing most of the building work was relatively easy. The problems became when they started to try and integrate the control systems, the signalling systems for the trains with existing systems. Actually building a railway, even though it's through the middle of London, it's underground, 36 kilometres long, something ridiculous like 600 different partners involved, was relatively easy to design, but actually integrating it with the existing systems was the thing that was most difficult.
They probably have to mind the gap in that regard.
Definitely.
And I know you're an Englishman, and you have your royals. And I've heard about something called Prince2.
Yeah.
What's that?
Prince2 is actually, to my mind, one of the better ways of trying to manage projects. It's all about developing projects in complex environments. That's what the Prince stands for. And it was developed in the UK many years ago. But the reason that I like the Prince2 methodology is because it focuses on what they call boundary conditions. So within a project, running a project within your own team is relatively straightforward. The problem comes when you take the work that you're doing and have to work with an external organization or perhaps a separate department in your organization, in your company. Then you get sort of communication problems, you get problems with responsibility, you lose detail or insight into what's happening in the project. So the Prince2 methodology, I think, is a really useful one, especially when compared to the PM Product Management Body of Knowledge, which is an American institute. They have their own way of managing projects. But the Prince2 is a little bit different because it forces you to focus on these boundary spanning operations where your project moves from one part of an organization to a different organization, and it makes you really concentrate on those aspects because that's where projects often go wrong. They fall down, something disappears in the gap, the handover.
Do you also have other tools and methods that are unique to project management?
I mean, some of the common ones that people will come across, one of the early ones is critical path analysis. This was actually developed by NASA and people building the original moonshot way back in the 60s. It was a massively complicated project involving many different people. And so they had to develop tools to help them just appreciate all of the different elements that were involved. So we have critical path analysis is a very useful tool. Again, it's been around many years and we're very familiar with how to use it. Another one that builds on this is called Pert. This is one where with critical path analysis, you often assume the time for something to happen is fixed. Whereas with Pert, what you do is you put in some statistical variation. So it enables you to look at a project in terms of not the fixed times that all the activities happen and how to line them up, but it gives you an understanding of what can go wrong and what's likely to go wrong and give you a better view of the whole project using these sort of statistical measures for likelihood for the time that happens. Other tools that we have that have been around, again, for many years, and most project managers are fairly conversant with them. We have various tools for measuring the progress of projects and deriving various metrics and measures to help us understand how well the project is performing. But a lot of this is easily achieved using various elements of software. One of the common ones, of course, is Microsoft. They have Project Manager, and this will do an awful lot of the legwork in designing, getting you to work out the different elements that are involved, how to put them together, allowing you to design the project plan as you go. So in many cases, that's very similar to production management, where you're trying to do things like line balancing, determining the times that it takes for certain activities. Project management, times for certain activities. It's just that those activities may change each time you do it.
Thank you, Alan, for giving us this insight into project management.